My wife cheated on me with her boss, stole $200, $0 from our joint account to buy a house with him, and now she's trying to take everything. How do I fight back? I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this, honestly. My wife, Jessica, was always the kind of girl who knew how to hide her true colors. At first, everything seemed fine: marriage, jobs, friends, the usual grind. But then little things started changing. She became more secretive with her phone, always had a reason for why she was staying late at work or why she was meeting with friends. I brushed it off, thinking maybe she was just stressed or busy. We had a good life, or so I thought. Then came the signs I should paid more attention to but didn't. Her phone started buzzing constantly, and she'd hide it when I walked into the room. She'd get defensive if I asked about her whereabouts, claiming she was just working late or out with colleagues. But I knew her well enough to sense she was lying. Still, I didn't want to believe it. I loved her and I trusted her, at least I thought I did. One night I decided to check her phone. I know, invasion of privacy, but I was desperate for answers. I never expected what I'd find. Her messages with her boss, Mark, were explicit. They weren't just flirtatious, they hinted at something more. I saw pictures, texts that made my stomach turn. She told him she loved him, that she was tired of pretending everything was fine at home. It was like a punch to the gut. That was the moment I knew I had to confront her. The betrayal was worse than I'd imagined. It wasn't just an affair, it was a full-blown relationship, and from what I could see, it had been going on for months. She was stealing from us too. I found out she transferred over $200, $0 from our joint account to buy a house with Mark. I couldn't believe it. I was furious, hurt, and completely lost. I kept all this to myself for a few days, trying to process what I'd seen. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat. My mind kept racing over her lies, her cheating, her theft. I felt like I'd been punched in the chest every time I thought about how she'd betrayed everything we built together. I wondered how she could lie so effortlessly, how she could steal from me and then still look me in the eye. The worst part was, I had no idea how deep her deception went or what she was capable of next. Eventually, I decided I had to confront her. I wanted to hear her side, even though I already knew the truth. I planned to do it calmly, but inside I was boiling. That night, I sat her down in the living room, my hands trembling. When I showed her the evidence, screenshots of her messages, bank statements, her face twisted into this bitchy smirk. She looked at me like I was the crazy one, like she was the victim. She kept lying, saying she was just talking to Mark about work, that I was making a big deal out of nothing. But I knew better. She was trying to gaslight me, to make me doubt what I saw. Her reaction made my blood boil even more. She had this arrogant attitude, acting like I was overreacting, like I was paranoid. She called me insecure, said I was imagining things, that she'd never cheat or steal from me, but I had the proof right there. Still, she kept spinning her lies, trying to make me doubt myself. That's when I realized she was good at manipulating, at hiding her true intentions. I felt a mixture of shock, anger, and deep sadness. How could she do this? How could she betray me like this, steal our money, and then have the nerve to deny everything? That night was a turning point. I knew I couldn't stay quiet anymore. I felt so betrayed, so humiliated. I loved her, but I couldn't ignore what was right in front of me. This wasn't just a fling. It was a full-blown betrayal that threatened to tear everything apart. The trust I once had was shattered. I didn't know what to do next, but I knew I had to take action. I couldn't let her get away with this, not without a fight. I was determined to find out how deep her lies went and to make her face the consequences of what she'd done. After that confrontation, everything changed. I felt like I was walking around in a fog, unsure of what was real anymore. Jessica kept up her acting innocent, acting like I was the crazy one. She everything said I was paranoid, that I was reading too much into her messages. She even called me controlling and paranoid for questioning her. That made me furious. How dare she turn it around on me like that? She was the one sneaking around, stealing our money, lying to my face, and now she was trying to make me doubt myself. I knew I had to do something more concrete. I started digging deeper into the bank accounts, trying to find out how much she'd taken, where the money went. It was a lot more than I thought. She had transferred $200, $0 to buy a house with Mark. That was a huge chunk of our savings, supposed to be for our future, for retirement, for the kids if we ever had them. I couldn't believe she'd do something so reckless and selfish. At that moment, I realized she was not the woman I married. She was someone else entirely, someone manipulative, greedy, and utterly heartless. I also found out she'd been having frequent secret meetings with Mark, always claiming they were just working late or discussing business. But I knew. Better, I could see through her lies now. She was in love with him, or at least obsessed enough to risk everything. I felt a surge of rage every time I thought about her betrayal. She was so bitchy about everything, always putting herself first, lying her ass off, and now she was trying to take everything from me. I decided I had to confront her again, but this time with a plan. I wasn't just going to yell and accuse her blindly. I was going to catch her in her lies, expose her for what she was. I reached out to a private investigator I knew from work. I paid him to follow her to get proof of her meetings, her new relationship with Mark, and any other sneaky moves she was making. I wanted undeniable evidence before I made my next move. I couldn't trust her anymore. She had burned that bridge long ago. Meanwhile, I started gathering all the financial documents I could find. I contacted our bank, froze our joint accounts to prevent her from siphoning off more money. I also looked into legal options, what I could do if she tried to take everything via divorce or legal proceedings. I was determined to fight back. I wasn't going to let her walk away with our savings, our house, or anything else. I was furious that she thought she could just lie, cheat, and steal her way through this. One night I got a call from the pie. He had footage of her meeting with Mark at a hotel. She was all over him, kissing him, clearly more than just colleagues. That was the final nail in the coffin. I watched the footage over and over, feeling sick but also relieved. Now I had proof, solid, undeniable proof of her betrayal. I knew what I had to do next. I sat her down again, this time with the evidence in hand, and laid it all out. Her face went pale, her eyes darted around, and she started to lay again, but I cut her off. "Jessica, I know everything. The affair, the money, the house you bought with Mark. I have the proof. I want a divorce and I want my money back. You've betrayed me in every way possible and I won't stand for it." Her mouth opened, but no words came out. She looked like she was about to cry, but I didn't care. I was done being played. That confrontation marked the beginning of a war I didn't want to fight. I knew I had to be smart, strategic. I contacted a lawyer and started preparing for what was coming next. I wanted to make sure I could protect myself, my assets, and get justice for what she'd done. I was hurt, betrayed, and angry, but I also knew I had to stay focused. I couldn't let her manipulate me anymore. I had to take control of the situation, no matter how much it hurt. The woman I loved had turned into a stranger, and I was about to make sure she paid for what she did. The more I dug into her lies, the more I realized how deep she'd gone. Jessica kept up her act for a little while longer, acting like she was the victim, trying to guilt-trip me into forgiving her. She'd cry, say she was sorry, that she made a terrible mistake, that she loved me but was just weak. Yeah, right. That's what she told her friends too, but her actions told a different story. She was cold, calculating, and relentless in her pursuit of her new life with Mark. I started noticing other things, small details that confirmed she was planning her escape. Her wardrobe suddenly got more expensive, more revealing. She started working out obsessively, even more than before. Her phone became her constant companion, always glued to her hand. She'd spend hours on those late-night calls, whispering in ways that made my skin crawl. I felt like I was losing her piece by piece, and the worst part was knowing she was doing all this behind my back while pretending everything was fine. One day, I confronted her again. I told her I knew she was planning to leave, to run away with Mark, and I was sick of her lies. Her face twisted into that bitchy smirk she always wore when she thought she had the upper hand. "You're just jealous," she snapped. "Mark treats me better than you ever did. Maybe if you weren't so insecure, you'd see I'm happier without your controlling ass." That was her way of turning everything around, making me feel like I was the problem. But I wasn't falling for it anymore. I was done being manipulated. I decided I had to act fast. I contacted a divorce attorney, explained everything, and started the process. I also hired a financial advisor to help me understand how much of my money was gone, what I could do to recover some of it, and how to protect what was left. The more I learned, the angrier I got. Jessica had drained us dry 200, zero stolen from our joint account, hidden assets, and now she was trying to claim the house, the furniture, everything. She was scheming, planning her escape, and I was determined not to let her get away with it. Meanwhile, I kept the evidence safe, screenshots, bank statements, the hotel footage, and started preparing for the legal fight ahead. I knew she'd try to spin stories, accuse me of abuse or control, but I had the proof. I also secretly hired a private investigator to keep tabs on her, just to make sure she wasn't doing anything even more reckless. I didn't trust her anymore, not one bit. One night I found her packing a suitcase. Her eyes were cold, her face set in that familiar bitchy expression. She was trying to leave, probably to meet Mark again, or to get a head start on her new life. I stood there watching her, feeling a mix of heartbreak and rage. I asked her where she thought she was going. She told me she was done, that she was finally going to be happy with Mark, that I was just too controlling. I told her she wasn't going anywhere until we sorted everything out legally. That moment was a turning point. I realized I had to fight not just for my money, but for my dignity. I couldn't let her walk all over me anymore. I told her if she left, I'd take her to court, fight for custody of whatever was left, and make sure she paid for her lies and theft. She sneered, said I was just bitter, but I knew I had the law on my side now. I wasn't going to let her ruin me, ruin us without a fight. Looking back, I see how much she played me, how she used my love, my trust, and my money to build a new life with someone else. But I also learned something about myself. I'm stronger than I thought. I won't be a victim of her manipulations. I'll rebuild, fight for what's mine, and make sure she doesn't get away with destroying everything we had. This isn't just about money or betrayal. It's about standing up for myself and reclaiming my life from someone who tried to take it all. The legal process moved faster than I expected, probably because I was dead serious about not letting her steamroll over me. Jessica, of course, kept up her bitchy attitude, trying to spin things her way. She claimed I was making her life impossible, that I was controlling and paranoid. She even accused me of abuse, which was laughable given the situation. I had all the evidence, texts, bank statements, hotel footage, and I made sure that was all documented. The judge didn't buy her lies, not after seeing the proof. She started crying, of course. That fake, manipulative crying that she perfected over the years, trying to guilt me into backing down. She told me she'd change, that she only did it because she was unhappy, that she loved me but was just weak. Sorry, Jessica, I thought. That's not how betrayal works. You don't get to cry your way out of this after stealing my money, cheating on me, and trying to walk away with my life savings. Meanwhile, I was working with my lawyer to freeze her assets, to get her off the house deed, and to secure my rights. I also hired a forensic accountant to trace where the money went, finding out she'd used some of it to buy that house with Mark, but also to fund a new lifestyle, designer clothes, expensive dinners, lavish trips. She was living high on my dime, and I was furious. How dare she do this to us? How dare she think she could just walk away with everything? I also learned she had been lying to her friends, spinning stories about how she was finally free and happier than ever. That made me sick. She was so good at hiding her true intentions. I realized she'd been planning her escape for months, maybe even longer. Every secret meeting, every hidden call, every transfer of money was part of her plan to cut me out and start fresh with Mark. The more I uncovered, the more I saw how calculated she'd been. She lied to her boss, to her friends, even to herself. She thought she was clever, thought she could get away with everything. But I had the evidence, and I was determined to make her pay. I kept pushing forward, filing for divorce, demanding full custody of the assets I could claim, and fighting to protect what little was left. I also started seeing a therapist, not because I was weak, but because I needed to process the betrayal. I was angry, hurt, and feeling like I'd been punched in the chest every day. The therapist helped me keep my head clear, focus on the legal battle, and not fall into despair. I realized I wasn't alone in this. Lots of guys go through similar shit, and it's okay to admit you're hurting. But I also knew I had to be strong, not just for myself but for what was right. One night, I caught her sneaking out again. This time, she was trying to leave for good, probably to meet Mark somewhere secret. I blocked her at the door, told her I wasn't letting her run away with my money or my life. She yelled, called me names, tried to guilt-trip me, but I stood my ground. I told her if she left, I'd file a motion to prevent her from taking anything else. I wasn't going to let her get away with stealing from me and destroying everything we built. That moment made me realize how much she'd become a stranger. Jessica used to be the girl I loved, the girl I trusted. Now she was just some manipulative, selfish woman who thought she could walk all over me. I knew I had to keep fighting. I couldn't let her win, not after all the lies, theft, and betrayal. I had to take control, stand my ground, and make sure she paid for what she'd done. Looking back, I see how much I've changed in just a few months. I'm not the same guy who trusted her blindly. I've learned to be cautious, to protect myself, and to fight for what's right. I don't regret loving her, but I regret trusting her so much. Now I'm focused on rebuilding my life, getting justice, and moving forward. She may have tried to destroy me, but I'm still here, still standing. And I'll make sure she regrets ever crossing that line. The court date finally rolled around, and I was more prepared than I had ever been for anything in my life. Jessica showed up with her usual bitchy attitude, trying to look innocent, but I could see right through her. She was trying to act like the victim, claiming she was just trying to find happiness, that I was controlling and paranoid. Her tears were fake and her words were full of lies. The judge didn't buy it. The evidence I presented was irrefutable: the hotel footage, the bank transfers, the texts, and the witness statements from people who saw her sneaking around. Jessica's lawyer tried to spin it differently, claiming she was under emotional stress and that her actions didn't warrant punishment. But the judge wasn't having it. I could see the look in her eyes, the frustration and anger she had when she realized she was losing her case. I felt a surge of relief, knowing I had done everything I could to fight for what was right. The judge ordered her to return the stolen money, to relinquish her rights to the house, and to pay me a significant amount in damages for the betrayal and theft. That day, I finally felt like I was taking back control of my life. Jessica was furious, screaming, calling me names, trying to manipulate the judge with her tears, but it was all for nothing. She'd lost her case because I had the truth on my side. I knew she'd try to appeal or fight back in some way, but I was ready. I had lawyers, evidence, and the law on my side. After the court proceedings, I felt a strange mix of relief and emptiness. I'd won the legal battle, but the emotional scars still lingered. I realized I'd been living in a state of constant betrayal for months. Jessica's lies, her theft, her affair, they'd all left deep wounds, but I also knew I couldn't let her control my life anymore. That day marked the beginning of my healing process. I started to focus on myself, on rebuilding what I'd lost. I moved out of the house shortly after. I couldn't stay there anymore, not with her still lurking around, trying to manipulate and guilt me into giving her what she wanted. I found a new place, a small apartment where I could breathe and start fresh. I changed my number, cut ties with her friends who still supported her, and began to rebuild my financial stability. It wasn't easy, but I was determined to get my life back. Jessica didn't take it well. She kept trying to contact me, sending angry messages, calling me names, and trying to guilt me into taking her back. She even accused me of trying to ruin her life. But I was done listening. I knew her tricks now. I had learned that she was a master manipulator, but I wasn't going to let her use that to control me anymore. I blocked her on social media, changed my email, and made sure I had a support system of friends and family who could help me through the aftermath. Looking back, I realized that despite everything, I've grown stronger. This whole ordeal has taught me that trust is fragile, and betrayal can come from the people you least expect. But it's also shown me that I'm capable of standing up for myself, fighting for what's right, and rebuilding from the ruins. Jessica may have tried to destroy me, but I refuse to let her win. I'm focusing on my future now, one step at a time, and I know that someday I'll look back and be grateful. I survived this mess, because if there's one thing I've learned, it's that true strength comes from facing your pain and moving forward, no matter how hard it gets. Now, sitting here reflecting on everything, I realize how much I've changed and how much I've learned from this nightmare. Jessica's betrayal was a punch to the gut, no doubt about it. But it also forced me to confront some uncomfortable truths about trust, loyalty, and what I deserve in a relationship. I used to think love was enough, that if I loved someone enough, it would cover everything. Turns out, love isn't enough when the other person is willing to lie, cheat, and steal. Getting through this has been a brutal lesson in self-respect. I learned that protecting myself isn't just about money or legal battles. It's about valuing my own well-being and boundaries. Jessica's actions showed me how dangerous it is to ignore red flags, to turn a blind eye to the signs of betrayal. But I also learned that it's never too late to stand up and fight back, whether it's legally, emotionally, or financially. I've started rebuilding my life from scratch. I got a new job, one that challenges me and makes me feel alive again. I've reconnected with friends I'd let slip away, and I'm slowly learning to trust again, just not blindly. I've become more cautious, more aware of my worth, and honestly, I've become more resilient. If I can survive Jessica's betrayal, I can survive anything. To anyone out there going through something similar, I'll say this: don't ignore your instincts. If something feels off, don't brush it aside. Gather your evidence, protect your assets, and don't be afraid to stand up for yourself. The pain is real, but so is your strength. You don't have to let someone's betrayal define you. You can fight, you can heal, and you can come out the other side stronger. I don't hate Jessica anymore. I feel sorry for her. Sorry she's so broken and selfish that she'd throw away everything we had for a fleeting affair. But I also know I'm better off without her. I'm finally free from her lies and manipulation. I've learned that sometimes the biggest lessons come from the worst betrayals. And in the end, I'm grateful I survived it all. Because now I know what I'm truly worth, and I'm ready to rebuild a life based on honesty, respect, and real love.